TikTok refugees. I'm actually surprised, hugely surprised, by the outpouring of support, love, and embracement from the so-called TikTok refugees. In reflection, I have found you're not refugees departing or leaving a beloved application in fear of its closure. You're actually entering into a realm that none of us on both sides has experienced before. A world where cultures merge with each other, where a virtual melting pot truly exists beyond the borders of US. Well, a reality no better than the best expectation, but much better than your worst expectation exists beyond the propaganda, beyond daily reporting, beyond the politicians painting up the picture of the other country. Let me read to you some of the responses that I've heard so far. One of the refugees, let me actually just temporarily still use that term, said, "Thank you so much. Let's just say my eyes are wide open. I'm looking forward to learning, growing, and sharing love." Someone else said, "Thank you for your hospitality. I'm old and never, ever used TikTok, but I'm here now. I have been enjoying my visit here and will be back again soon. Best wishes." Another person echoed the second visitor's opinion by saying similar, but much better. "I'm learning to cook some amazing dishes and seeing beautiful gardens and scenery here in China." I think the China painted by the politicians is a fake China, worse than your worst expectation. However, I also have to say, while you have been warmed by the welcomes of the Chinese netizens, be aware that the reality also is probably inferior, best expectation. Speaking of melting pot, I can't help but recall my first visit to the US. When I was 22 years old, 1 month after graduation from college, I boarded my first ever flight out of China all the way to New York City. I wanted to study something that might help me to obtain the skills so that I can actually positively impact the change of the Chinese society. As I believe sociology might be the discipline that can give me the ammunition to do the transformation of the Chinese society. So I applied and I successfully got into Columbia University. I asked some of my friends, what are some of the best sociology departments in the US? And they told me, one is Harvard, the other is Columbia. I chose Columbia because Columbia exists out of the city of New York. And I knew New York City hosts more than 10% of the US population and truly is a melting pot. Upon arrival, I found myself to become a minority. However, a minority that I don't feel on an everyday basis. People don't look at me as a foreigner. It's just someone with a yellow face, someone who might be coming from Japan, Korea, Hawaiian, or China for that sake. I'm relatively tall in those days for the expected height of someone coming from China. I'm also relatively heavy-weighted than someone who actually came from a poor country such as China. So when people ask me where you came from, I always ask them to take a guess. And the guesses were always wrong. Someone said South Korea. Another person may actually said Hawaii. I told them that I'm actually from China. And the response has been, "Do you mean Communist China?" Yes, Communist China. Communist China has someone with my height. Communist China has actually someone with my weight. And Communist China has someone who can speak a little bit of your language. So my first experience into the melting pot truly has been melting in nature. And also, I'm actually surprised to find people were incredibly nice, incredibly fun. The two people on a fundamental level were not that different. I told my parents in writing, I said to my worried parents, New York was just like Beijing. Those were the early 90s of last century. New York was not like Beijing. But I felt the only thing that surprised me truly was that every apartment has hot water where you can actually take a shower at any time. Other things might be better, might be worse, but they don't really surprise me. So truly on the foundational layer, I believe both people are peace-loving, are interested in each other's culture. Honestly, I think New Yorkers and Beijingers are literally the same. They're very similar. Even the way of our accents, the slangs, the way we speak Chinese here in Beijing and the US English has a attached to the every pronunciation. So welcome again. I also cannot help but remembering a US movie that came out roughly around 1998 by the title of Truman Show, played by Jim Carrey. They told a story about a small town that existed out of blue. Everything that surrounds this guy, the Jim Carrey character, was fake. His birth was fake. His neighbors were fake. His wife was a player. And every morning when he woke up, the routines and rituals were fake. That town is the town we live in today, sometimes I feel. President Reagan said something to then Russian Soviet Union President Gorbachev. He said, "Mr. President," referring to Gorbachev, "tear down that wall." That wall Reagan was referring to, the Berlin Wall. I feel that we have to say that again today. Tear down that wall, that political wall that separate people who are similar in the foundational layer, but we're forced to have a perception that the other side was evil. So tear down that wall, my newly made friends from TikTok. And once you come, do stay. I also know there has been a flip-flop of the TikTok policy. One day they were closed. The other day, after 19 to 20 hours, they're open again. But I think opening of the gate has a one-door effect, by which I mean, once you open it, you cannot close it. The Chinese reform economically, culturally, and even politically is a one-way door. The last few days, what we have experienced, well, feels untrue. It's really, really exhilarating. People from all over the world are meeting each other on this platform, and they have found each other to be fundamentally nice, caring, peace-loving. And we have the same concerns, same curiosities, even same worries. So once you come, do stay. Whether we reverse some of the netizen behaviors back to TikTok or not, you will truly find that on this platform, and hopefully on this platform only for a long while, that you have experience of a communication at a foundational level never experienced before. I also want to call out to the US and Chinese politicians. Seize the hour and seize the day. Sometimes an event unexpected come your way. And as a politician, either you can give up the window of opportunity for transformation and change, or seize upon yourself and give people the chance to continue to mingle. In 1971, in perhaps January, if I recall correctly, in Nagaya, Japan, there was a worldwide ping pong championship tournament. A US player who, for whatever reason, found the US team's bus departing without him, hastily boarded another ensuing bus. As he wandered around, he found himself surrounded by wide-eyed Chinese players from mainland China. In that one moment, one bold young athlete rose up, stood up from his chair, and presented the US player with a handshake. And when they took off, the Chinese player gave the US player a Chinese gift. The US player has a name of Glenn Cohen, and the Chinese player is remembered forever as Zhuang Zedong. They ushered in the US-China diplomacy, which resulted 1 year later in a Nixon and Kissinger visit to Beijing, received warmly by then Premier Zhou Enlai and then Chairman Mao Zedong. 7 years later, on January 1st of 1979, President Jimmy Carter, who just passed away at 100 years of anniversary, signed into agreement the permanent establishment of diplomatic relationship with PRC and its counterpart Deng Xiaoping. I hope a small incident such as this has opened the floodgate of worldwide netizens gathering together on this exuberant and true platform, shattering the misperceptions that have long existed on both sides. I hope, just like Mr. Reagan called for the tearing down of the Berlin Wall, just like the small ping pong ball has forever reshaped the relationship between China and the US, this very incident, the flooding in of TikTok refugees, all of you can change world history again. And for that reason, I will stop calling you TikTok refugees. I will start calling you TikTok rebels. I'm Alan Wang. Let's stay connected. Welcoming TikTok refugees.